Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like on this video, and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. Now, let's get into the story. I never thought betrayal would become the headline of my life. I always saw myself as careful, someone who looked for the red flags early, who learned from other people's mistakes. But life has a cruel way of reminding you that sometimes no amount of caution can protect you from the people closest to you. My name is Olivia, and until a few months ago, I thought my life was safe, steady, maybe even enviable. I had a good job, a circle of friends I trusted, and a family I believed would always be my anchor. And on top of that, I was in what I thought was a serious, committed relationship with a man who made me feel like the future was finally starting to make sense. His name was Daniel. We met at a friend's birthday party. The kind of casual gathering where you don't expect anything life-changing to happen. I wasn't even planning to go that night, but my best friend insisted. I still remember walking into the crowded bar, hearing the music too loud, scanning the faces until my eyes landed on him. Daniel was leaning against the wall, smiling in that easy, confident way that makes you feel like you already know him. He struck up a conversation, and before I knew it, hours had slipped by. We talked about movies, travel, the kind of random dreams you usually keep to yourself. I left that night with his number saved in my phone and butterflies I hadn't felt in years. The first weeks of dating felt like a blur of excitement. He texted me good morning before work, called me late at night just to hear my voice, planned thoughtful dates that made me believe he was genuinely invested. He wasn't just charming, he was attentive. He listened to me in ways that felt rare. I introduced him to my friends, and they all approved. He seems solid, one of them said. Not like the usual guys. For the first time, I let myself hope this wasn't just another fleeting thing. When I brought him home to meet my family, everything seemed fine. My dad, who had always been protective of me, greeted him politely. My mom asked the usual questions. Daniel fit in easily, making everyone laugh, offering to help clear the table. I remember thinking how lucky I was. My relationship with my dad has always been complicated but close. He raised me after my parents divorced, and while he could be strict, he was also my biggest supporter. He's the kind of man who never missed a school play, who worked 2 jobs just to make sure I had everything I needed. Even as an adult, I leaned on him more than I probably should have. In my mind, my dad was the one person I could trust completely. So when Daniel seemed to get along with him, it felt like a blessing. I thought, if my dad approves, then I must be on the right track. In those early months, life felt steady, almost idyllic. Daniel and I spent weekends exploring new restaurants, binge-watching shows, talking about trips we wanted to take. He stayed over often, and sometimes we'd spend Sundays at my dad's house, helping with small projects or just sharing a meal. I didn't notice the little details then. The way Daniel's eyes sometimes lingered on my dad when he thought no one was watching. The private conversations they seemed to slip into when I stepped out of the room. Back then, I chalked it up to bonding, something I should be grateful for. Looking back now, those moments feel like the first cracks in the glass. But at the time, I was blind. I was in love. Daniel told me he wanted a future with me. He said all the right things, the kinds of promises that make your heart believe. My dad, for his part, seemed more relaxed around Daniel than I'd seen him with anyone else I had dated. They'd laugh together over old movies, share beers in the backyard, talk about things I wasn't always part of. I thought it was just male bonding, the kind of thing I couldn't understand, and I told myself it was a good thing. I never imagined the 2 people I trusted most, the man I loved and the father I idolized, were building something in secret. Something that would shatter me in ways I still can't fully put into words. But before that nightmarish truth came out, there was a time when I was happy, blissfully unaware. Walking through days that seemed ordinary but were already laced with betrayal. If I had seen it sooner, maybe I could have stopped it. Maybe I could have protected myself. But love makes you blind, and trust makes you foolish, and I was both. The beginning was so good that I ignored the whispers in my gut when the first cracks appeared. Looking back, it feels almost ridiculous that I didn't notice sooner, but when you want to believe in someone, you invent excuses for everything that doesn't make sense. That's what I did, over and over again. At first, it was Daniel's phone. He had always been open with it, leaving it on the coffee table, texting me sweet things in front of everyone. But slowly, that changed. He started keeping it face down, sliding it into his pocket when I walked into the room. He'd smile at notifications and then lock the screen so quickly it was like muscle memory. When I asked who it was, he always had an answer ready. Work. A friend. Nothing important. His voice was casual, but his eyes avoided mine. Then came the excuses. Nights when he said he couldn't hang out because of late meetings. Mornings when he claimed he was too tired to see me. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. But something inside me shifted, the tiniest seed of doubt planting itself in my chest. At the same time, my dad's behavior began to change too, in ways I couldn't quite name. He'd seem distracted when I visited, smiling a little too quickly, changing the subject if I asked what he'd been up to. Sometimes when I called, he didn't answer, only to text me later with vague explanations. Busy, out, can't talk. That was unlike him. My dad was the most reliable man I knew. I didn't see the connection then. I thought maybe he was dating again, maybe he was hiding someone new from me because he didn't want me to worry. A part of me even felt relieved. If he had found companionship, I wanted him to be happy, but something about the timing felt off. One Saturday afternoon, Daniel told me he couldn't make it to lunch because he had errands to run. I decided to visit my dad instead, unannounced. When I pulled into his driveway, I noticed another car parked there, familiar, but I couldn't immediately place it. I walked in, calling his name, but the house was strangely quiet. My dad appeared a minute later, smiling in a way that seemed forced. Olivia! I didn't know you were coming. The car in the driveway clicked in my brain hours later. It was Daniel's. When I asked him about it that night, he laughed it off. Oh yeah, I stopped by to borrow some tools from your dad. I forgot to mention it. His tone was light, but something about the way he said it left me unsettled. Since when did Daniel and my dad have side conversations without me? From that point on, little things piled up. There were nights when Daniel came over smelling faintly of cologne I didn't recognize, a sharper scent than what he usually wore. He brushed off my questions, saying he had just tested a sample at a store. Once, I noticed a text flash on his screen before he locked it. It was just a single word, tonight, and the sender's name wasn't saved. My stomach twisted. But when I asked him about it, he kissed my forehead and told me not to overthink. Even my dad started acting differently around me. When Daniel joined us for dinner, they sometimes shared glances I couldn't decode, a quick look followed by silence. I told myself it was just me being paranoid, but deep down, I knew something wasn't right. One evening, I left my sweater at my dad's house. When I went back the next day to pick it up, I noticed 2 glasses of wine in the sink. My dad insisted a neighbor had stopped by, but he avoided my eyes when he said it. The lie was so small, so unnecessary, and yet it left me with an ache I couldn't shake. Rachel, my closest friend, was the first to say out loud what I had been too afraid to think. Liv, she said, you don't think Daniel is cheating? Do you? My throat went dry. I shook my head quickly, too quickly, but her words lodged in my brain. The signs kept stacking, Daniel canceling dates, my dad being busy, their cars appearing in places that didn't add up. Once, I saw a text pop up on Daniel's phone when he wasn't paying attention. It wasn't saved under a name, just a number. The message read, "Same time as last week?" My hands shook, but I said nothing. I convinced myself it couldn't be what it looked like. Daniel might be hiding something, sure. My dad might be acting strange, yes. But the idea that they were connected, that the two men I trusted most were keeping a secret together, was unthinkable until the night I caught a glimpse of something that cracked the illusion open. Daniel had gone to the bathroom at my apartment, leaving his phone on the counter. It lit up with a notification. My heart raced as I reached for it, my hands trembling. I didn't want to snoop. I didn't want to be that person. But something stronger than me pushed me to look. The text was from a number I didn't recognize. But the message made my blood run cold. I miss you already. When I scrolled up, my world tilted. Messages filled the thread, intimate, emotional, secretive. But the name mentioned in one of them shattered me completely. It was my dad. When I read my dad's name in that thread of messages, my whole body went numb. My hands shook so violently I almost dropped the phone. My mind tried to reject it, to find another explanation. Maybe it was a cruel joke. Maybe Daniel had saved the number under that name to throw someone off. Anything was easier to believe than the truth. But as I kept scrolling, denial was no longer an option. The messages weren't vague. They weren't innocent. They were explicit, emotional, and intimate in a way that left no doubt. Phrases like "last night was amazing" and "I can't stop thinking about you" bled through the screen, each one cutting deeper than the last. And then the one that destroyed me: "I wish Olivia didn't have to get suspicious. I want more time with you." I dropped the phone onto the counter like it was burning me. My knees gave out, and I sank to the floor, my breath ragged, my chest tight. My boyfriend, the man I thought I would build a future with, wasn't just cheating. He wasn't just betraying me. He was dating my dad. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The silence of that moment is something I'll never forget. It was like the whole world had gone quiet just to watch me crumble. When Daniel came out of the bathroom, I couldn't even look at him. My face must have given me away, because he froze in the doorway, his smile fading instantly. "Olivia, what's wrong?" I pointed at the phone on the counter, my hands trembling. "Whose messages are those?" My voice cracked, thin and sharp. For a split second, he didn't answer. His eyes darted to the phone, then back to me. And in that pause, I saw everything. Guilt. Panic. The truth he couldn't hide anymore. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Then he whispered, "I'm sorry." That was all it took for me to break. I screamed, the sound raw and ugly, the kind of scream that rips something out of you. I demanded answers, demanded he tell me it wasn't true. But the way he looked at me, his silence, was an admission louder than words. My dad. My own father. I grabbed the phone, scrolling furiously through the messages, shoving the screen in Daniel's face. "This is him, isn't it? This is my dad. You've been lying to me this whole time." Daniel tried to reach for me, his voice desperate. "Olivia, please, it's not what you think." I cut him off, my voice shaking. "Don't you dare say that. Don't you dare tell me it's not what I think when it's right here in black and white. You and him. Together. Behind my back." Tears blurred my vision, but anger kept me standing. I shoved him toward the door, shouting for him to leave. He begged me to listen, to let him explain. But what explanation could there possibly be? What words could erase the image burned into my mind that the two people I trusted most had been sharing a secret so vile, so cruel? When the door slammed shut behind him, I collapsed again. But this time, I wasn't just crying. I was shaking. Gasping, clawing at my own skin like I could scrape the betrayal off me, hours later, I drove to my dad's house. I don't even remember the drive, just the way my hands gripped the wheel, white-knuckled, my chest heaving with every breath. I needed to see him. I needed to hear it from his mouth. When he opened the door, his face lit up in surprise, then quickly shifted to concern when he saw me. "Olivia, what's wrong?" I couldn't even step inside. I just held up my phone, the messages still glowing on the screen. My voice cracked as I whispered, "How could you?" For a long moment, he said nothing. His face fell, his eyes darting away, and in that silence, I had my answer. I felt like I was staring at a stranger. This was the man who raised me, who taught me to ride a bike, who sat in the front row of every school play. The man who had been my protector, my anchor. And yet he was the one who had cut me deepest. "Olivia," he started, his voice low, "I never wanted you to find out this way." I laughed bitterly, the sound sharp and broken. What way was I supposed to find out? When you left me for him? When you invited him to Thanksgiving not as my boyfriend, but as yours? He tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. My whole body recoiled from him. "I don't want to hear it," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "You're supposed to be my dad. My family. And you betrayed me in the cruelest way possible." He looked down, ashamed, but that did nothing for me. The damage was already carved into me like stone. That night, I cut them both out of my life. I blocked Daniel's number. I told my dad I didn't want to see him. I went home and sat in the dark, staring at nothing, feeling like my entire world had collapsed, because it wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just infidelity. It was something far worse. It was a violation of trust so deep I didn't know if I would ever recover, and yet, in the silence of that night, one thought kept echoing in my mind: if they could do this to me, then I was never safe to begin with. The night after everything collapsed, I remember sitting in the dark of my apartment, staring at nothing. Hours passed, but I couldn't move. I felt like my body had been drained of blood, like I was a hollow shell just going through the motions of breathing. My phone buzzed again and again on the table, each vibration like a hammer to my chest. Daniel. My dad. Again and again. I couldn't bring myself to answer. I replayed every detail in my head. The first time Daniel smiled at me. The first dinner we had together as a couple. The night I introduced him to my dad, feeling proud that I'd finally found someone worthy of sharing with my family. Those memories used to make me happy. That night, they made me sick. Every smile, every hug, every word was contaminated now, poisoned by the truth I could never erase. By morning, I was still awake. My reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger, pale skin, swollen eyes, lips trembling as if I had aged years overnight. I barely recognized myself. Daniel didn't stop. He called, texted, emailed. His messages came in waves. "Please, Olivia, I need to explain. I didn't want to hurt you. It's complicated, but I love you. I also love him." That last one destroyed me all over again. To see the words in black and white, that he loved both of us, was a cruelty I didn't know how to process. My dad showed up at my door the following evening. I didn't let him in. I couldn't. He stood in the hallway, knocking softly, calling my name like he used to when I was a child hiding in my room after a nightmare. "Olivia, please. I just want to talk." But he was the nightmare now, and nothing he said could erase that. Neighbors stared. Some probably thought it was a family argument, something small, something that would blow over. But I knew better. This wasn't small. This wasn't something that could be fixed. It was a fracture so deep it had cut through the marrow of who When I finally told my mom, she broke. She covered her mouth with her hand and cried silently, shaking her head over and over. She said she always suspected my dad struggled with who he was, but never, not in her darkest dreams, did she imagine he would betray me like this. Her anger wasn't just at him. It was at Daniel too, for inserting himself into our family. In such a twisted, destructive way. He took from you, she whispered, and your father let him. Word spread. Family members called me, their voices trembling with shock. Friends messaged me, some to comfort, others just to confirm the rumors. And then there were the whispers. The looks. The pity. I became that girl, the one whose boyfriend cheated on her with her dad. People whispered it in grocery store aisles, coworkers avoided eye contact, and some, in the cruel way humans can be, treated it like gossip to laugh at the humiliation. Cut almost as deep as the betrayal that I stopped going out. I stopped answering the phone. I let myself rot in silence, trapped in my apartment with the ghosts of memories I couldn't silence. My mind replayed everything, Daniel's hands holding mine, my dad's laughter at the dinner table, the way they sometimes shared glances I couldn't interpret. Now those glances made sense. They had been carving me out of my own life all along. The grief was layered that I lost Daniel. I lost my dad. I lost the safety of my own family. I lost my trust in people. I even lost myself for a while. Nights blurred into days. Food lost its taste. Sleep felt impossible. Sometimes I'd dream of my childhood, my dad teaching me how to ride a bike, cheering at my graduation, hugging me so tightly I thought nothing could ever hurt me if he was there. And then I'd wake up and remember that same man had looked me in the eyes and lied to me, day after day, while sleeping with the man I thought was my future. It felt like every version of my life had been rewritten, every memory tainted, and yet, somewhere in the middle of that darkness, I began to crawl toward survival. It started with anger. Rage so strong I thought it might kill me. I screamed into pillows until my throat burned. I wrote letters I never sent, filled with words too sharp to speak. Anger was a fire, and it kept me warm when nothing else did. Then came the silence. The depression, the days when getting out of bed felt impossible. I cried until my body ached, until my chest felt bruised. I thought about how unfair it was, that I was the one broken when I hadn't done anything wrong. That they got to choose, and I was the one left in ruins, but slowly, painfully, I began to reclaim pieces of myself. Therapy became a lifeline. I sat in a chair across from someone who didn't judge me, who listened as I poured out every ugly detail. She told me something I'll never forget: the betrayal belongs to them, not to you. The shame is theirs to carry, not yours. Those words loosened something inside me. For the first time, I realized I didn't have to carry all of it. I started walking again. Long walks, miles at a time, just to remind myself I was still alive, still capable of moving forward. I redecorated my apartment, stripping it of every reminder of Daniel. I painted the walls, bought new sheets, replaced the plates he had picked out. It was symbolic, but it mattered. It meant I could create a space that was mine again. I reconnected with friends. I let them remind me what genuine love looks like, the kind that doesn't demand betrayal, that doesn't hide in shadows. I laughed again, even if it felt strange at first. My dad is no longer in my life. He tries, sometimes, leaving messages, sending cards on my birthday, begging for another chance. But the man I thought he was is gone. Or maybe he never existed. Either way, I can't open that door again. Daniel is gone too. Completely cut off, erased from every corner of my world. I don't know where he is now, and I don't want to. He's just a ghost to me, a reminder of how easily love can turn into a weapon. And me? I'm still here. I am scarred, yes. But I am stronger than I ever thought possible. Betrayal didn't just break me, it reshaped me. It forced me to strip everything down to the bone and decide who I wanted to be. And what I decided was this: I will never again let anyone convince me that my worth depends on their love, because love can lie. Trust can break. Family can betray, but I am still here. And I am mine. So yes, my boyfriend was secretly dating my dad. Yes, it shattered my world. But from those ruins, I built something stronger. I built myself, and this time, no one gets to take that away.